Hello, my name is Brett Stevenson. I've been involved with the CPA side over the last year and a half. I thought now with the AGM coming up on the 22nd of May it would be helpful to do a couple of short videos just in relation to the meeting, in relation to the resolutions and in relation to the proxy voting. It's been a pretty tawdry affair really for a professional organisation, but we're now at the business end and it's a critical time now for us if we're going to make some positive changes. I'd like to do the first part of this video just outlining some of the issues that have arisen in the last month and some of the feelers I've put out to the board to endeavour to get some consensus, some of the problems that have occurred, and in my second one I will focus more on some of the key resolutions. So let me just briefly go over what the resolutions are. We have 14 resolutions at the AGM, 12 of them are special resolutions requiring a 75% vote, pass of the people who vote, whether by proxy or in attendance, and we have 2 special resolutions which only require a 50% pass of those who vote. The board have 4 special resolutions, and members have put up another 10 resolutions. I think it would be fair to say, well from my perspective anyway, that the board's 4 resolutions don't deal with the substantive issues and the substantive problems that we have faced at CPA over the last year and a half. And I've reached out to the board and met with them a couple of times, just individually and with a couple of them on another occasion, in an endeavour for them to perhaps give an inch on some of theirs, and I was prepared, insofar as I have any influence, to go a mile on mine, but it would seem that they weren't prepared to do that, and that's such a pity. But let me briefly go over that and why I'm saying the substantive issues have been missed by the board's resolutions, and why the members' resolutions are critical. Keep in mind that the members' resolutions have been brought up basically by 4 groups who've been involved in exposing all this. There have been myself, there's been the Spillers group, there's been David Darman and Will Kempton's group, and there's been a past president's group. And in some ways, the fact that no one else put any resolutions up, none of the divisions, no other people put up any resolutions, whether they saw ours as representing their position, I don't know. But I met with the New South Wales division, which covers 42,000 members, and they certainly had their views on some of the resolutions, but clearly it had no impact in terms of them putting up some resolutions or having any impact on the board. And the other thing worth note right up front is that the board spoke a lot about the fact that they wanted to have consultation forums to communicate with the members, but insofar, and there was a lot of talk, a lot of great talk, but insofar as the resolutions, that they didn't change any of them. It had no impact whatsoever on the resolutions that they put forward in their 4 resolutions in the notice of AGM to us members. Which it's such a pity really. They'd had a big opportunity to really cover some of the issues, but clearly they couldn't. They just were bloody minded, quite frankly. That's the best I can say of that. So let me have a look at the 5 resolutions that I felt the board could certainly have moved toward us a little bit. And not that I feel I'm an expert on this, but I felt there needed to be some healing of a lot of the division that's occurred over the last year and a half, and certainly a need to get some consensus to get a 75% vote to pass resolutions, because the big danger for us is that at the AGM there may not be any resolutions passed and the status quo may remain, and that would be a disaster for CPA in light of what's happened. So let me briefly cover the 5 which I felt the board could have really made an effort to achieve consensus. The 2 most obvious ones, and they cover the big issues that were dealt with. The 2 most obvious ones are Resolution 6, which is the one brought by Ben Cohen in relation to email communication. with the members. That was a major issue. All these issues were coming up and we could not communicate with all the membership. The board could because they have the email addresses and we couldn't. So this seems to be such a basic resolution to endeavour to overcome that problem in the future. Of course, you would need 100 members to actually sign any request for the board to communicate in that email, but that seems quite reasonable. And for the board not even to cover this in their resolutions or even to express an opinion, just to oppose it, I think it was foolish on their part, because that was one of the big issues. We had to spend $2,500 to get the members register. There were no email addresses on it, and you probably all, if you find, we had to send an inquiry to endeavour to change that. But the board just could not see that as an important safety valve to ensure that this would not happen again. And the other safety valve, and again, which the board did not cover, it surprised me, was Resolution 13, which Jen Dallett's brought up, or introduced, and that is really to ensure that all we need is 200 members to call a general meeting of the members. Now the board may have thought it should have been perhaps 400 or 500 or 1,000, but at the moment we have to get 6,000 members to be able to call a members meeting, which is ludicrous. That has been a major issue. That's why this has dragged on for a year and a half. And for the board to even ignore it and to say vote against it is just crazy. Now they, just in corporate governance, in principial terms, they've missed two wonderful opportunities to put a couple of checks and balances into our constitution to prevent these things from going on again, having to discuss these things in the media and having to have almost a public fight to have them exposed. The other three resolutions, which I thought the board could have made a little bit of movement toward us, were on the full disclosure. I told the board, because I've got a resolution there on full disclosure, as per a public listed company, but the 2017 annual report was pretty good. They disclosed very fully on remuneration, and I told them that. And I said, if you would lock that into the constitution, insofar as my resolution, I was prepared to speak against that at the AGM. But they wouldn't do that. All they wanted to do was lock it into the bylaws. And the bylaws can be changed by the board. Whereas if we have it in the constitution, they can't be changed by the board. It has to be done by the members. And again, I think it was just pig-headedness on their part not to be prepared to move on that. And I'd say exactly the same with the 6-year tenures. There's a resolution there to limit the tenure of any director to 6 years absolute. Now, the preliminary report of the independent review panel agreed with that. They changed it in their final report and said, oh, well, no, maybe we should allow the possibility for 3 years extra if we get a very good board member. Well, that was a big, big issue in the last 11 years where we've had a gerrymandered corporate governance system. And we've had directors who've served not just 9 years, but 11 and going on 12 years. And so that was a big issue. All the board needed to do was say, yeah, we would agree with that 6 years. If they wanted to add another 3 years, do that in a few years' time when things are quietened down and the members have a better opportunity. But no, the board would not even do that. They opposed that resolution also. And the other resolution, where they could have softened a wee bit, was in terms of directors' remuneration. That was a big, big issue. When that was fully disclosed, that was really when the members, Alex Malley was sacked and 7 of the board members resigned. The rest of the board are now all gone. We have a new leadership. All because, in a lot of ways, the catalyst for that was that full remuneration disclosure. So it's a very hot issue. It was just pure avarice and greed, really. They milked us, the previous leadership. And so this was a wonderful opportunity for the board to say, yeah, look, this is a way for us to make a big statement. Now, certainly they came through with their resolution, either 3 or 4, I think it was, where they reduced the remuneration of directors. But I suggested to them it wasn't enough, really. Now, you can have your own views on that, but I looked at used benchmarks from over 1,000 comparable organisations to come up with mine, and that was a significant difference. And I said, if you just reduce yours a smidgen from what you originally proposed, you would get us on board. But they wouldn't do that. They just stuck with theirs. And I think you just need to read Joe Aston's column in the AFR, and I think it was pretty spot on in relation to the remuneration that the new board is suggesting. So I find it very sad that they cover 5 issues which were really big in the last year and a half, and 5 resolutions, and the board rejected them, or they're not even considering them. And they're the substantive issues which have been ignored. And I find it extremely sad to have to say that. I will look at each resolution in the second part of this, but let me finish by just saying I've done a blog or an email on my views on each resolution, but I have certainly changed on one, and that is the resolution 14, the last one. I originally have been of the view, quite frankly, that we don't want any change in the leadership now. We've got it there. Let's give them a good shot. Let them push on and see what they can do, and they have made some good changes already. But I increasingly, in view of the fact that they haven't been prepared to deal with these substantive issues, I think I was wrong in opposing that, and I would support that now. And I think that that resolution, which is calling for Peter Wilson no longer to be a director of CPA, is probably a good resolution. So, so on that negative, relatively negative note, let me finish this part, and then in my second part I would like to deal with each of the resolutions, and I'd just like to focus on 4 or 5 which I think are critical. Okay, see you then. Bye.